barreled underneath the house. So this is the foundation of the house. The cement footer and everything is just barreled underneath that, ripping out everything in its path. This was Jennifer and Garrison Branch. His mom lives in this house. Their properties are connected, and all of the insulation in this crawl space was soaked, just destroyed. And in fact, right in here, the water was so forceful, it actually ripped the insulation right out and just buried it in sand and dirt. And what was a crawl space that might have been this high at one point was about this high because of all the sediment, sand and dirt and mud that was in there. So our job was to pull that out. There were a bunch of trees down around the property. That's the stream right there, if you can see it. Trees just barreled over. A little retaining wall was cemented in, so it withstood. This is a couple of back porches, so the water just barreled through here. So Jake and Doug Strout took into clearing property. You can see all of the stuff. So the water got up right to the floor level. It did not really get into the house in this particular instance. It just destroyed the underneath, knocked this porch. Well, this one kind of stayed. You'll see this one's in rough shape. This was their driveway. This was an outbuilding just past the house, downstream from the house. Knocked off. It was still sitting upright. And then just the water carving another building, little lean-to roof knocked over. So this is where the water came out the house. So it went in on the other side, came out on this side, just dug this all up, knocked that porch off. This is Cale taking a break from cleaning out. So you can see the devastation. Cale and I, being the smaller of our team, it was our job to go underneath. And that's Joe Ash Chamberlain there. And that's what we were pulling out of there. And
insulation and
that was soaked to the hilt.
wow.
So we crawl under this crawl space, and it's just mud and sand. It's real sandy ground down there. And we're just kneeling, on our knees in our jeans, just slopping. And you had to lay down on occasion to pull this insulation down, and you're just laying in mud. And what I didn't think about is all the heating ducts. These were plastic corrugated heating ducts that were underneath the home, all full of water. So they were hanging there, and we had to take them down and try to hold up each end. But you're in the middle of let's say it's this, it was a little bigger than this, but probably, let's say you're big, and you're in the middle of the house underneath, and you've got this probably 40, 50 pounds of water in a hose that's that big around, and you have to drag it on your hands and knees back to the corner where you can dump it. But some of them broke, spilling their water everywhere. It just made it worse to be under there. That gives you an idea what we were in. So this is a heating duct we had already cleared out. This insulation was either still up or just caught on power lines and caught on pipes and stuff, and we're just laying in the mud. And you have to have a mask on. Some of the more tree damage. This is basically what we looked like as we came out of there. That's Kay York. Kay came down to visit us. She when we were getting ready to go down, we just couldn't make heads nor tails of what was true. We were hearing one thing from Kay. We were seeing all this stuff on the internet. We're like, I was going to make a Facebook post, but then they were saying that they were arresting and turning away people who were coming in to support. And we're like, all right, maybe I shouldn't do a Facebook post, you know. And then all of these things, like every situation, things are usually not quite as good as people make them out to be, and they're not as bad as they make them out to be. And so some of these things were just sort of fog of war kinds of communications. Kay and her team were helping out in Spruce Pine. They all got called back, and the powers that be there, you're not authorized to be in there doing help. It all became political, so they all kind of went back to their desks in protest. Kay decided, I'm not. So she took the Friday off and then the rest of the week. But by the time we got down there, she had been called to go down to Asheville to help out with the law enforcement response down there. So she was down there. She came over to visit us.
If you don't know, she's Pastor Jeff York's daughter.
Yeah. So I brought my jeans back, and it was raining here the other night, so we laid them all out on our back deck, let the water rinse them off, and then I think they got thrown. So I got to tell you the story of, I've already talked for 30 minutes. It's like, it's going to be what it is.
He's all right, isn't he? Yeah. All right.
Jennifer and Garrison Branch. I didn't get the impression that they were believers. Nice couple, but just overwhelmed by everything. And taking to heart what Paul had said, I had a chance to go talk to her. And I said, so how are you guys doing? I said, you really seem like you're holding together. They seemed kind of like they were doing okay. And she goes, yeah, we're not. And she goes, I can only be out here for a couple of hours, and then I have to run to the house, and I just bawl. And because there's just so much, we were worried about my mother-in-law. This insulation was going to mold in no time if we didn't get out of there. We spent the day working with them, working to get that out of there. That one picture of the foundation I showed you where the hole was, it started to drop. It was separating from the house. So Jake and the team, they got in there and they got a bottle jack and they were propping it up. And the gratitude that these people had, was just like, who are you? They were like, who are you people? You came all the way from Pennsylvania just to help us. And she stood, we kind of were chatting at the very end, we were getting ready to go, and she says, I'm not good at public speaking or anything like that, but is there anything anybody would want to say? And we knew what she was referring to. And so we said, yep, let's pray. And so we were able to pray with them, and she's just crying. And Doug, our guy, he was like, he was absolutely convinced. He goes, the church is going to see them. They're going to go because of just the outpouring. Yeah. So we were a little frustrated with how the Calvary process was organized, because it kind of wasn't, at least not when we were there. And we got back from the branches and mucking this house, and we're like, that was awesome. We're exhausted. We're filthy head to toe. They had finally hooked up showers. They were Arctic blasts. Just like, I can't do it. I can't do that cold. It was 75 during the day, but at night it got down to 38 degrees in western North Carolina. It was cold down there while we were there. And so I went in the bathroom and just, washcloth and kind of got as clean as I could get. And we were asking, what are we doing tomorrow? We don't know. When will we know? We'll work that all out in the morning. And that was a little frustrating. Like, we want to know what we're doing. We want to get up and go and get things done. Yeah. we had these 9,000 pounds of water on our trailer, and it was blocking in our side-by-side. We could have used that side-by-side at the Branch's house, but it was on a trailer we couldn't get to. And the Calvary there couldn't take the water. They didn't have the room. We were trying to reach, there's a Calvary Chapel Home Fellowship in Spruce Pine. We knew that they got decimated. Spruce Pine got slammed. We couldn't reach anybody. We decided, we made an executive decision, let's get in our trucks, get in our trailer, we're heading to Spruce Pine. And while we were on the way, we got a call back from the Home Fellowship, the Calvary Home Fellowship in Spruce Pine. We don't have any place. They meet in an office building, but they had no place for the water. But then they said, but Mitchell County has a disaster relief center set up at a senior citizens center, and they gave us the address. So then we redirected, went there, and we pulled in. They had a sort of a makeshift sign out front, meals and supplies, diapers and formula. And there's our box all strapped down. We had to start taking it apart. We had a bunch of our guys, that's Kale, taking a break. And we just bucket brigaded all the water, and there's the water. They had an area just near that where they were giving out meals. And this couple came in with these massive stock pots. These things were this big around and that tall. And they were cooking this chicken gumbo kind of meal, and they were serving meals. Doug, this is Doug Stroup right here, Stroop. He gets out of a car and he's immediately looking for somebody to talk to. He's just outgoing as all get out, and he found this couple, and so I took their picture. While we were there, after we dropped off our water, we went into the command center, and there's some FEMA guys there, some military guys there. This was a lot, just a hubbub, right? A lot going on. And we went in there, and they had these rooms with tables and phones and laptops, and it was really well organized. I found a guy. He says, "Are you here for supplies?" I said, "No, we're here to help. We just dropped off water. We're looking for something to do. You need to talk to Stephanie, but go through this young lady first." We had waivers to fill out. Then they got to Stephanie, and we said, "What can we do?" And, "Well, what can you do?" I said, "We can muck out houses. We've got chainsaws." "Chainsaws, great. I've got a family that needs some trees off of a house." Perfect. While we were sitting there, an older couple, middle-aged couple, came in, and the guy said, "Can I help you?" And he said, "We need a generator. We're kind of got a medical emergency. I had a generator. We have no power, but my generator died. And we have a special needs daughter. Is there anybody here that has a generator?" He turned around, looked at us, said, "Do you have a generator?" And I said, "We sure do." "Can you go over there and hook them up?" "Absolutely." I asked him a couple of questions. Do you just need it for the day? Do you need it for the week? He said, "I've got one coming in on Saturday to replace mine. If I can use yours for the week, that would be perfect." I said, "Awesome, we're leaving Sunday." Yeah. So that worked out great. So we drove to his house, hooked up his generator, our generator. He needed his refrigerator, which had been off for 2 days since his generator quit. And then we met his special needs daughter, and she had just some things. She needed electricity to keep her going. So that was awesome. Then we drove up this mountain, and this is north of Burnsville, and it's just this. You're going back and forth, and then at one point the road goes like this, and the driveway makes about like 180 degree back, and just goes up the mountain. I'm driving up this driveway in my truck, looking over the edge at the road down there, and it snakes around the mountain, and there are carports supported on stilts on the side of this mountain. Wow. Sketchiest looking things you've ever seen. I mean, I wouldn't walk in it, let alone park in it. Sure. We come around the corner, and there's a a branch holding a power line across the driveway. And I was like, Joash, am I going to get under that? And he's like, yeah, you're just going to clear. And we come up here, and this is what we saw. So you can see this giant oak tree is on her house. The owner is a woman who lives in a house just up the hill, just up the hollow. And this is her mom's house. She has Alzheimer's. And she was just petrified of staying there with these trees laying on it. They didn't puncture the house. She had a metal roof, and it was intact. No power, no water, but she owned a generator, and she could get power back to it if we could get it so her mom felt comfortable coming in there. But there were power lines, you can see it right here.
Oh, yeah.
Power line laying right across the driveway. Power lines hanging everywhere, just everywhere. They were all dead. The power was gone, so we were safe. But here's a power line. There's a power line.
Wow.
Trees everywhere. This property was just blasted. I don't know how many mile-an-hour winds they had up in the hills, but it looks like tornado damage. I mean, it just, and you can't tell here, but there were no leaves left on the trees. We drove up this mountain, we turned this corner, and here's this whole thing, and there's no leaves. Looks like winter. And it was the craziest thing. This tree turned out to be a little bit more than we could handle without a bucket truck. But we started in on that one. We climbed up. Jake got up there with his saw. You can see this power line hanging through there. And we start taking apart this. So I'm pretty nimble and small, so he was up on the peak cutting all the branches that were off this, and he'd pull them to me. I'd hand them down to the guys. They'd cut them up. And we asked Melissa, was her name, Melissa McKinney, where do you want us to put this? And she goes, I don't care. Throw it down the mountain. So we just threw it over the hill. And so we started to make some headway on that. This was, you can see that post right there, holding that power line up that we drove up. Another crew from the Baptist church nearby came up to take care of some other trees. And but this is the transformer outside her house, used to be up on top of that pole.
Wow.
And I learned real quick how heavy those things are. I had no idea. It took 3 of us to move it.
Wow.
They're heavy, massive. Cale, you know, being young and a workhorse, just, this is Jim Hunt's, Pastor Jim's son. That's Joash in the background. But you can see just leaves and branches and trees. And this was your typical Appalachian mountain person home. It was ramshackle and just stuff collected from centuries, just all over the, you know, it was crazy. Jake had sort of made up his mind, we got to get this thing out of there. And so we cut all the lines. They're all dead. They were going to have to be replaced.
Sure.
So he just cut them, but we didn't plan on one little thing. This wire right there ran to a pole, and then it ran down the mountain across the road, and it began to sag. Even though it was connected up here, it must have just had enough play in it. And a dump truck came down the road, locked up his tires. He thought he was going to take it out. Well, he was so close to taking it out that it started swaying. So we got 6 guys, and we're pulling on this thing, and we had to wrap it around the transformer in order to get it up so it wouldn't. And then there was a utility crew down below, and so we told them about it. They turned out to be like internet utility. They didn't have anything to do with power, but so we got back from that day, and they had hooked up a propane heater for the showers. So we were able to get some warm warm showers. It's like, 7, 8 o'clock at night. It's 57 degrees outside. And when you're wet, you're wet.
Right.
It's still cold. So, but we were pretty good. We were going out to dinner every night and just talking about what we had seen. We met a guy named Ari Elion. He's from Calvary Chapel, La Habra in California. And Calvary Chapel, La Habra runs an organization or has an in-house organization called Calvary Disaster Relief. I'd never even heard of it. Well, he's one of the team leaders, and he's a businessman, travels all the country, but you can tell he's a very, very smart guy. And we were sitting at dinner, and he was talking about what he had faced that day. So not far from where we were, there was a lady with a basement that had been flooded, and she was a hoarder.
Oh, no.
This basement, it's hard to describe. You'll see the pictures. You imagine a basement, with, a 7-foot ceiling, just almost filled to the hilt with everything, right? Just with everything. Now add 6 feet of water rushing through. He arrived there, he told us, Ari arrived there, and he said, I started in on this. I had a couple of people to help me, and I just had to go out and weep because this job was going to be so daunting.
Wow.
And we said, we'll come help you.
Yeah.
And he was like, that's incredible. So we headed up the next day. You'll see that he had not gotten too far. So this is a picture he took of her basement.
Oh, my.
The water came in the back, flowed up to this corner. You see that white thing there? That's a chest freezer. Floated up and tipped over.
Oh, my.
And all of the contents, the meat contents of that freezer,
no.
thawed and became rancid because it was about a week by the time Ari got there. That white thing back there is another freezer filled to the hilt. So we arrive. He had this much of it cleared out. So he and his first team had cleared out that one freezer. He said he almost threw up 2 or 3 times, just the smell. So we walk in there. We've got masks on, N95 masks. The aroma is just unbelievable. This is muck with water and her furnace, her hot water tank. And that's Ari back there.
Oh, yeah.
We're starting to empty that freezer out.
Oh, no.
We had one entrance in and out of this place. It was a narrow door with about 6 or 7 cement steps. And then it had this goofy little right angle thing. So your step ended here. There was a small step here, but then the step came down this way. So you had a wall right here. And then when you got up there, there was another lip, like a retaining cement block. And we had to get everything we carried up there, up those stairs, around that corner, over the edge. And then there was no place to put it. It just had to go out in the yard. So this is such heartbreaking stuff.
Oh, my gosh.
We couldn't even count them. Well over 1,000 jars of canned foods.
You got rid of all of it?
All of it. There were a few jars that were recently canned that were intact, but the water got in and just,
Yeah.
the shelves collapsed, but they didn't go anywhere because of all the jars.
Okay.
They were sitting on each other.
Oh, yeah.
So we literally had to start at the top, take everything down.
That had to take you hours,
Days.
days.
So the process, you can see all the mud. There were bags and bags and boxes of stuff, clothing and whatnot.
Wow.
We're starting to get it cleared.
Yeah.
And this is just hours and hours. There were couches. There were. This is an old stove, cast iron. We had to break everything apart with a sledgehammer in order to get it out of there.
Oh, man.
Now, if you've ever before my mom passed, I had dealt with her. She was a hoarder, and when we were trying to help her clear her house out, there's this visceral reaction to your stuff being thrown away. And the first day, she was just having a panic attack because stuff was coming out and getting tossed on the refuse pile because people weren't looking close. You know, we got a job to do. We got to get all this stuff out. And Ari and I, on the second day, were like, we need to give her some peace of mind that we're not throwing away valuables, sentimental items, things that might be collectibles. And so I was able to endear myself to her by I'd say, hey, Miss Diane, I think this is a collectible. And she'd go, oh, yes, thanks you so much for not throwing that out, right? And she we got such a rapport just by gently loving her and respecting those things. And so we had these areas. We'll set this stuff over here so she can go through it. Some things were just beyond ruin. And she really did become pretty good at going, it's ruined, throw it out, throw it away. So,
Wow.
this is, I don't know if you can hear that or not.
Wow. What a big thing.
We finally she had power, which was really fortunate. A lot of the furnaces shot, hot water tanks shot. We're clearing out the bottles. This was a table, beds, just. We found hundreds and hundreds of antique Mountain Dew bottles, Pepsi bottles, just the original.
Wow.
The original logo, and so we saved all of those.
How much of those worth, Harold?
A little bit.
Yeah.
We found an entire roaster, like a turkey roaster, full of old marbles, and it was his marble collection. And
Did you bring them home?
we took them out. They washed them right in the roaster and drained them, and she came out as we were getting ready to leave, and she had a handful of these marbles. She goes, I want every one of you to have one of these marbles, you know. And so we took a marble. She goes, I want you to carry this marble in your pocket. Mine's on my nightstand at home. And just think about us when you find that
That makes
marble.
me tear up.
Yeah. So we were able to pull a water line, a hose in, and start squeegeeing. This was a young lady from California working with Kale to get all the water, the jars off.
Wow.
This is so that's the entrance right there, going down into the basement. This is Donna. She's the daughter. This is our team. This is Maria, the granddaughter. Diane's right back there in the blue. I don't even know her last name. I just called her Miss Diane. Maria, I mean, just look this is what we looked like after working in that for a few hours. They were down to their last.
Wow.
And we started
How
attacking.
many hours?
He was there for probably 6 hours on Wednesday. We were there 8-9 hours on Thursday. Friday, we finished up about 1 in the afternoon. So, can you imagine that came out of the basement?
Wow.
Oh my.
And here's the thing. All of those canning jars are in there. All that food, dozens and dozens, hundreds of jars were open. The lids had corrupted. it was just a nightmare. The smell from that thing was unbelievable. And they had no idea, Waste Management couldn't tell them when they could come. They were going to have to come with a front loader and a big garbage truck and just dump it in there.
Wow.
And they didn't know when they were going to. I would give anything to go back with like a skid steer or something and just begin working on that pile. I don't know if she's gotten it taken care of yet, but it was.
Hopefully she's not putting it back in her basement.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be so sad. Go back and it's in the
So what a transformation.
Yeah.
So this is Maria. She's 13 years old
Wow.
and she plays football.
Wow.
You can see that. And Reagan from California, they kind of hit it off, so they were having fun. I love this picture. Reagan came up with the last crate full of jars. She's mud head to toe. And I said, hey, we got to get a picture of you. And she just goes down like that.
Joy of the Lord.
Yep.
Wow. You wanna take some questions? We got about a half hour left. So
Yeah.
How much longer you wanna go?
It's pretty close.
Yeah.
You got to see this. So this is Diane, her daughter Donna, and her granddaughter Maria coming in. We got to pray with them. She gave me the biggest old bear hug. Their appreciation was just unreal. That's right next door to her.
Wow.
House completely gone off the foundation.
Wow.
Car, this is right across the street from her house. So the road's in front of her house. This stream is right in front of her house. There's a stream that came down the hill. That's the one that flooded her. And then there's just cars, houses gone, carports gone, bridges washed out. That's a house.
Wow.
That's a SUV in the middle of a field with a power line wrapped up underneath its undercarriage. Just devastation. There's a trailer with its roof ripped off. This is right along a main road. Look at the size of this. This is a little stream that comes up through here, a culvert that goes underneath the highway. It backed up and got plugged up, so all this debris got washed up here. It bent the guardrail, and it pushed this tank. Look how big this tank is. Wow. Somebody's mailboxes. Trucks, cars turned over, buses,
Wow.
the leftover mud. This is in downtown Spruce Pine with a railroad track right by the river. So it got that high, just plowed up through this stuff, tore these buildings. This was a truck that was sitting there. Houses just wrecked, trees. And there you have it. So, have you ever heard this story? It's an old anecdote. This young boy was along the seashore, and the tide had gone out, and there were starfish everywhere. Have you heard this?
Yeah.
And he's throwing the starfish back in the ocean, and an old man says, "Young man, what are you doing? There's miles and miles of beaches. There's thousands of starfish. You're not making a difference." And he picked up one and he threw it back in the ocean. And he said, "I made a difference to that one." When you go down there, it's exactly the same. There was so much destruction, so many people who need help. You just go,
Yeah.
what can I do? And you just help. And then you go on to the next person. We basically helped four families. And we made an incredible, these people were just weeping in gratitude. And so we become the hands and feet of Jesus
Amen.
for that. And we're so thankful for your fellowship's support in helping us make that possible. And like I said, we'd go back again in a heartbeat. If the Lord opens the door, I'll go back.
Yeah.
Help. It goes in phases. The very first phase is disaster recovery, right? You're just getting people out of the flood, getting rescue, search and rescue. Then it comes like the floodwaters subside, everything's kind of calmed down a little bit, but there's just chaos everywhere, just disaster everywhere, devastation. So that's what we were into, mucking out houses, restoring power, getting water back on, those kinds of things. It's now quickly moving into rebuilding. So now there's still a lot of tree removal, but now they need construction teams, shoring up people's foundations, shoring up buildings and lean-tos and all of that stuff. So, yeah, if you have any questions, I'll do my best.
What did you find with supplies and help being shut off and being told, take them away, or you leave them with us and you go away? Did you find much of that? Or
So the only thing we found, yeah, and we were hearing that, and we were like, wow, what's going on? What it really came down to was their ability to take it. Everybody was willing to accept it, but some didn't have the room. And so, like with our water, we checked a couple of different places. We don't have room for it, or we already have too much, and so you just had to find somebody who had it. The amount of supplies that were brought in is pretty staggering.
Wow.
I mean, they're, from a supply standpoint, really well, they're set. Teams of people, they need more of. But yeah, a lot of people sent in supplies.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but there's the rumor out there that FEMA is out there telling people, go away, we don't want you here.
Yeah, that
Did
was my
you
question.
hear or see any of that?
We did not.
Okay.
And we heard the same thing. There were, the one big story was the Army,
Fire.
the National Guard guy,
Yeah.
who was in there, but they weren't given any orders, so they were just sitting around. So he found a private helicopter, and he was told, if you fly in there, we're going to arrest you,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. So, there's some of that. So I got to tell you this little story too, because in all of this good that was happening, so Miss Diane, the very first day that Ari was there, this guy shows up. And he says he's from such and such Baptist church in Tennessee. And let me just put it this way. He didn't look like he was from the Baptist church. A tall, lanky guy, scruffy beard. He had all of his nails painted yellow, his fingernails. But he's like in his 50s. And it was just a weird look. Smoking a cigarette, and he was going through all of her stuff. So we'd bring bags of clothes out. We were huffing and puffing and dragging out, and he's just walking around the things we're picking out here. So Ari came to me, he says, I don't know what this guy's deal is, but he seems to be more of a scavenger than he is a helper. Mm-hmm. And so the people there are hurting, they're desperate, and I come walking in. I'm from Calvary Chapel up in Pennsylvania. I'm here to help. Am I?
Right.
How do they know?
Right.
And Ari had spent the first day there, and he was in there pulling stuff out, and this Russell was going through stuff. So he went to Miss Diane, and he said, look, I don't want to cause any troubles. I don't know what the real story is, but this guy's giving me kind of a weird vibe, and so he didn't want to be confrontational, so he went and we tried to befriend him. It's like, hey, Russell, we've got some food down here. Come on down, have lunch with us. So he came down, made a sandwich, and then kind of went back off by himself. He didn't talk to us or anything. And Ari went to Diane and said, he said, it's your call, but if it were me, I think I'd ask him not to come back.
Yeah.
And she did. She finally said. And so he came over to Ari and said, well, Miss Diane just talked to me and says she doesn't want me back here, and I'm going to respect her wishes, but you make sure that you're taking care of her. Don't be throwing her stuff out. And it was just a very, very awkward.
Just use a lot of discernment.
Yeah. And he was not a good guy.
Yeah.
All the clothes disappeared. I mean, she was going to toss him anyways, but his story was that he was going to find the clothes that were salvageable, take them, and then use them for other families and stuff, but it didn't seem that way.
Yeah.
So.
I was gonna ask you two things, and one was, did you guys carry information on yourselves, like cards from your church or anything like that, so that you could assuage people
Yep.
were okay?
We did not. And we know that that's something that we need to do.
Yeah.
This was our first rodeo.
Yeah.
We learned a lot. We really learned a lot. So, and Ari, he's got the hats, he's got the shirts. It really lends a degree of legitimacy to their organization. And I think that's something we definitely need to do.
And then the second thing I was gonna ask you, did you find anybody that had solar power?
We did. Who did we? Nothing big, but there were some people who had solar power recharging things for like phones and stuff like that. But nothing, not big solar things.
Yeah.
Most people were using generators. We knew they would be, so we went down with like 70 gallons of diesel fuel and about 100 gallons of gasoline. We ended up topping off the church's supplies of diesel and filled up as many gas cans as we could so they could use them for people who were going out and refilling chainsaws and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
because at least we heard that you couldn't get gas down there.
So the very first night
A lot of people
yep,
in there.
and we heard all these things. Even when we were coming in, they were saying, you better fill up outside of Asheville because it's real iffy down here. The very first night, we're driving down the highway towards the church, and we found we wanted to hit a gas station, and we had heard this. They had power, but no internet. And when you don't have internet, you can't run your credit cards, and so everything.
Yeah.
And so everything was being done on cash basis. And we went into this one place, all lit up, pulled up to the pumps, said cash only. We said, good. Where's the person we can give the cash to? It was closed. So all the pumps were on, but you couldn't pay. So we drove down the road. We found this little rinky-dink gas station with these old cranker pumps,
Wow.
just unbelievable with the whole thing going. And we were able to pay cash for gas there.
Wow.
By the next day, and when we were starting to get out in the light and we could see, there were, at least on the south side of Asheville, a lot of stores open. They had a curfew, so at 8 o'clock, all the restaurants that were open were closing down. None of them had running water, so you couldn't get fountain drinks. They couldn't serve anything like that. So they'd come out with bottled water for your drink, and it was either that or alcohol. And we found all these restaurants that were closed because it was about 8 o'clock when we were going out to dinner the first night. They closed at 8 because of the curfew. It got better over the next couple of days, and then we found places. Hendersonville had a little bit better, had fared better, so that was a few miles down the road. But yeah, it was real iffy at first, but it wasn't quite as bad as we had been sort of led on, but I think it just was getting better incrementally day by day.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So when their lives get as much back to normal as they can be, isn't the landscape totally changed forever? So
Yeah.
you might have like a cute little brook that runs by your house, and now you have a river, or a river with no water in it, but
So on their very last day, Jake and a couple of their team, we split up, and we were just driving up these hollows, trying to find somebody who might need some things. And that's where all those last pictures were, just houses. They found a family from Honduras. And we had heard this too, that they had shipped in a bunch of illegal aliens,
Yep.
like 9,000 of them, the week before the
Oh, my.
thing. So that's strange. Coincidence? But they found this family, and their house used to sit here with a creek there, and now the creek goes around their house. Just cut off, just on an island.
Wow.
Yeah, so that, you're right, all that stuff was happening. Just massive changes. We went up so many roads where the road had gotten washed out, half of the road was gone because it was right next to a creek. And they just come up with this massive, there's a mountain right there outside of Burnsville with this crushed stone. They were just mining it off of there and bringing it down and just throwing it in these road gullies, these washouts, so that you could at least get your car up around them. Right in front of Miss Diane's house, the road got destroyed, and so it's only one lane right around this corner, and you get around there, and then there's a car coming the other way, and there's no place for either of you to go. Somebody's got to back up. So yeah, it's going to be a long time before all of that's fixed.
but it'll never be.
Yeah, never be the same.
I mean, I felt bad when the farmer next to me sold a chunk of property to New York State, and they put up one of those homes when they closed down Jay and Adam, because I used to look out at farmers in their field, and now, even though it's like over 200 feet away from me, and now I see a big house. I mean, it's been 4 years, but
I had a picture, it wasn't in here, this huge field was a tree farm. So they had little spruce pine trees about that tall in this big flat area. They were all like this, every single one of them, just covered in muck, and you know, the entire crop is gone.
Wow.
I don't know how many tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so yeah, the loss is pretty incredible.
It's amazing how these people continue to live in these areas where there's a danger of hurricanes and floods, and yet they still live there.
Yeah. Well, for Western North Carolina, they've never seen anything like this, ever.
Not like Florida.
Now, yeah, I mean, to have a hurricane come this far inland and drop so much water.
Right.
So we talked about that with some people. They obviously had seen flooding. You know, big storms come in, drop a lot of water, but they've never seen 30 inches of rain in a day. You know, it's just.
So, go ahead.
This sort of leads on to something that I wanted to let the folks know here. I was in my car today and I heard an announcement on the radio, and it's just something that I don't know if anybody's interested in, but St. Susan's is doing something next Friday, and it is Homeland Security and Emergency Services is doing a citizen preparedness training, and it is free. You have to pre-register, because you never know when that's gonna happen here. And it says it's a training course that will provide an introduction to responding to natural or man-made disasters. Participants will be advised on how to properly prepare for any disaster, including family plan and so on and so forth. It may be something that people here might.
we did it in Olean. Fred and I did it about 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, so you have to register. You can go on to St. Susan's Facebook page, there's a QR code, Friday at 4 o'clock.
Well, I know, Black Mountain is another place down there that got hit. And, as many of you know, Ryan worked at Cable Hollow Golf Course for 17 years and then took a couple of years off and now he's back. But his boss, when his parents sold the golf course, he bought a landscaping business down in, my wife's given me the same thing I
Slip
gave
over.
you. Yeah. Is that better?
Couple of handsome guys.
Yeah. Anyhow, Dave went down there and bought a landscaping business in Black Mountain. And Dave has lost buildings, and he had 3 pieces of machinery that are gone. Another building that's partially damaged. And so, so it hit close with us because he was a good friend. I mean, Dave was like a brother to Ryan and a really a good friend to me. So we don't know how they're going to recover. They did a GoFundMe for them, which we donated to. But so much damage, and who knows how long it's going to take to recover. I think you're right. It's never going to be like it was, obviously.
Whole water processing plants in like Spruce Pine, Burnsville, they're all wiped out. And they're saying months before they get water back for these people.
One of the companies down in Asheville supplies 80% of the IV fluid, and so a lot of optional surgeries are being canceled or postponed right now because they don't have the IV fluid. I heard a couple of local hospitals were down to like just a few bags. So that's a serious issue that they've got to figure that out. And so it should help us. I mean, I would hope the powers that be, I'm not smart enough to figure it out, I would hope the powers that be would figure out that it's probably not wise to have that high of a percentage of a product being made in one spot. I mean, that's why spreading it out is wiser. So I do hope they reassess that, and that God gives our government the wisdom and the discernment that they need, but more importantly than the wisdom and the discernment, because sometimes I think they know these things, but they don't have the discipline to do what's right because they allow politics to get involved instead of our as we know, our government is not always for the people, and probably more often than not for the people now than what it used to be. And leave it to me to turn something like this into a political statement, but facts are facts. So what can the church do? The church can pray. Now you shared with me the money that you had left over. You had a certain amount. You gave the Calvary Chapel of Asheville how much?
$1,500.
So
We gave $200 to Miss Diane.
Yep.
She needed some money. So.
Yep. And then bought some gas with it and all of that. So he's got receipts. He's like me. He gets going and he forgets the minor details. He's going to get me receipts. So, we have some accountability for the donations that were made. But this was important for me to do because I had put out on Facebook, hey, we've got a team going down there. We want to help. And I just wanted people to know, I said, we got people that we can trust going down there. So it's just nice to know that when you hand our brothers and sisters from Calvary Chapel, we know that it's going to go to good use and opportunity for ministry. So on behalf of Koinonia, I want to say thank you to you and all the guys that went down. We appreciate our partnership with you. And we were more than happy to help. I mean, the donations were impressive to me that came in. I did not expect that
Such
much.
a blessing.
So, yep.
Such a blessing.
Yep. So any other questions? If not, I can start Bible teaching now. We can go into our Bible study. We will pick up in Luke chapter 10 next week. Anybody else have any questions? If not, I want to get some feedback on how did you think the anniversary celebration went?
Very good.
Anything in particular that you liked? What's that? The speakers were good? Yep, we had a nice wide variety. We sure did.
The music was good too.
Music was good?
Yeah.
All righty. I'm,
Coming from this family.
yes.
I love Rob, but my old ears don't
Yes.
go along with that.
Yeah,
Oh, my husband.
Yeah, and I like music, but
yeah,
it's not my cup of tea.
yeah.
Brad loved it, and I recorded part of the night that he was, and the second night.
Okay.
I mean, the last night that Rod was here, I recorded that, because that's Fred's music.
Yep.
He
Yeah,
loves it.
there was good music.
Yep.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was not my kind of music either. That part,
Sure.
I'm not into that kind of stuff. But I did hear you say, well, here we do, a lot of hymns. I'd like to see us do more hymns. I think
Well,
that there's
if-
a lot of information.
I could go back and tell you how many hymns we do. I'll bet we do probably 40% of the time we do hymns. I can go back and check that. I know we could, but
I think everybody feels that way.
It's a good mix, but I'll tell you what.
I like our mix.
It's like everything else in our society.
Yep,
The young people, I mean, they need to hear the hymns,
Yeah.
Yep.
but they like the
yep.
more modern.
I
contemporary.
I think our music is exactly what it needs to be, so don't look for any changes. Just being honest. Well, we'll keep doing the hymns, but we'll keep doing the other stuff too. So,
Something right out of the book.
yeah.
You have to get that book. You have to put it in your hand, open the page, and read. And
I'll tell you why we don't do that.
Word.
I'll tell you why we don't do that.
I love it.
I can't play it. That's why we don't. More anyhow. Although at the home, if you come to the home, we do all hymns at the home. So hymns for me, I'm getting my share of home. So yeah, so if you want hymns, come to the home. We'll do our best not to let them keep you. Okay?
For music, then when you're using the books at the home, but if you can't play them at church, you can't play them at the home.
Again, it's the limited numbers that we do here. They're all in that book.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
That's that, when I get to the home, I'll hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we don't. Again, if I went back and looked, I would bet 40% of the songs that we do are hymns. I could go back and actually look. I'm not going to. I'm guessing, but yeah.
I
But-
really did enjoy the speakers. I did. And
Yeah.
the music. So,
Yeah, I thought, you know what? So it was way back in, I don't know, February, March, April, when I really got to thinking about doing a week-long series. And I really wanted to we were going to celebrate 25 years, so I wanted it to be the history of the church. So from a biblical perspective, from the beginning, the church had a beginning, all the ways up to the church has a future, the church has much to be thankful for, and the church has, they were all, stuff that I saw our church go through and experience, but it was also a biblical account of the church for 2,000 years as well. So that was kind of the whole process. If you caught that theme, it went from the beginning of the church to Dennis finished Saturday night with the church has a future, and then Rod, of course, the church has much to be thankful for. And then I wasn't planning on speaking, but then when I decided to, I just thought, you know what, moving forward, what do we need to be? We need to be resilient. We need to know that I think the church is going to be under greater attack than ever in the years ahead. And so we're going to have to be resilient. So
I really enjoyed that guy on the Monday night for where we got COVID. Monday night.
Abel Robles.
He was so cool. He
Yeah.
was just a cool guy.
Yep.
I enjoyed listening to him. I just enjoyed him.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
That's where Rod's at, right?
What's that?
That's where Rod is right now.
Yeah, that's where Rod Buzzard is right now at his church tonight speaking. Yep.
And where is he from?
He's from Newcastle. Actually, his church is in Newcastle, but he lives in Youngstown, Ohio.
Youngstown.
Yep.
He's that close.
And that was fun for me to be able to talk to them all on the telephone.
Right.
And then to be able to meet them. on the anniversary celebration? Did it turn out to be what you wanted it to be?
You know, the first 2 nights, it was probably better attended than when we rebooted it. And I love that title, Koinonia Reboots. I really liked that title. I was just like, how's she gonna sell this? And when I saw that, I'm like, that's a perfect way to say it. Kind of kick ourselves in the butt to get going again. Reboot us, you know. I'm sure that's not what your intention of reboot was, but
Reboot is kind of
yeah.
a word that's used a lot today about when you start
Yeah.
something over again.
So the attendance, when we first started going, the attendance was great. I thought we had a lot more zeal towards it. Our attendance was good when you look at the scope of people coming to church in the middle of the week. I thought we had more than most people thought. Our speakers thought that the attendance was great. I have to be honest now. I just have always grown up, and when the church doors are open, I just have never thought of any other option than to be in church when church is open. I mean, that's just how I grew up. And when I grew up, we weren't anywhere near as, help me Jesus to not get in trouble for saying this, we were nowhere near as, I got to come up with a user-friendly word, because the word I'm thinking is probably going to get me in trouble. We weren't so overprotective of our kids. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. My parents had us out till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night at church, and I don't think I'm any worse the wear for it. I mean, maybe I am. Maybe I'm weirder than I think. I don't know.
You were
But
out past your bedtime?
yeah, I was out past my bedtime, and I graduated from high school, so I got me a good education. You know, I mean, going to church late and my parents keeping me out I don't think it hurt me, and I just think we look for too many excuses or make up too many excuses not to be in the house of God. And I think that is a stain on the church in this day and age. And I think it's another sign that we're living in the end times. We come up with, I mean, we advertised for months ahead of time that this was going on, and people still didn't come out. And I could see maybe somebody having to be gone a night or two, but I mean, for the most part, the 30 to 40 people that we had were almost all the same people every night. And I just wish, I'm speaking as a pastor now in love, I just wish that joining the fellowship and being part of the fellowship would become more of a priority, because I can see a day coming, if the rapture doesn't take place, where we're going to wish we were in church with our brothers and sisters in Christ. And again, that is not to say that there are not times when you can't be there. I understand that. But for me, coming to the house of God is a priority. I don't think I'm any more saved than anybody but I love God and I love His church, and I wish the church would get that understanding. I wish we would love God and love His church as well, because we're going to spend eternity together. So why not do it here? So I'm not trying to scold anybody. I'm speaking from the heart. But that's the only thing that I wish could have done better. I think it was good, but I know it could have been better. But every pastor has that desire. So I'm just speaking as a pastor. But as you know, and I'm going to close with this, there's 3 things we need, Brother Lance. As a born-again believer, when we get born again, we need a prayer life, we need to study the Word, and we need to be a committed part of a local fellowship, because the prayer life and the study of the Word equips us with the gifts that we need to help one another. And I dare say there's a lot of people going through issues and having trouble in their life right now that would be easier to go through if they were committed to being a part of a fellowship and showing up when the church doors are open. But they feel like they're alone because they're missing the mark by not being in the house of God when they could be or should be. So you asked.
Well said.
I I could think of a fourth one, Pastor.
What's that?
Share the gospel.
So, well, that's part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
If you're part of so at CMI, and it's the model of Calvary Chapel as well. The greatest way to share the gospel is to plant a church,
Yeah.
because you raise up disciples to go out and make disciples, and so that's a part of the third one for sure. So, yep. So I apologize. I didn't say that to offend anybody, but I'm speaking from the heart, out of love for the body of Christ. And if you talked with Pastor Jeff, if you talked with any one of those speakers that were here, they would all reiterate. They'd all be giving me an attaboy right now, because they're pastors and they understand and know. So, and if you're online, it goes for you as well. And I love you all. And I love you all. So, would you rather I just beat around the bush and skirt the issue, or would you rather I be honest with you? All right, you've heard my heart. All right? So,
I think that today's Christian is different than when I grew up.
100%.
Very different, and I think it's because of if you want to know what I think the truth is, it's the disposition of the family.
Right. Well, that, and let's face it, in the 70s and 80s, we didn't have the internet and this and that and everything else. And yeah, phones and all of that.
Yeah.
But again, for me, is Jesus Lord of our life?
Yeah.
If we love Him, we have to love His church as well. And loving His church is being together where we can help one another up. So again, I'm not saying this to put anybody down. I'm just being honest with where I'm at. My heart's desire is for us to get this, and then more people to come in and for them to get it. Again, going to church doesn't make you any more of a Christian.
Right.
But I believe Jesus established the church for a reason. Sharon.
So on the same lines with the cell phone, how many of us have looked around and noticed that somebody hasn't been here,
Right.
and you don't call them,
Right.
or you don't text them,
Yep.
and you don't say, hey, is something going on? Can I help you with something? How can
Yep.
I
That's-
give you a ride to church?
Yep.
I'm going to be the first one to tell you that if I miss a day,
Yeah.
I don't hear nothing
Yeah.
from anybody. And that's sort of painful
Yeah.
when you give so much,
Yep.
then and you don't hear.
Yep.
And that's not.
And when I shut this off,
People aren't, because we aren't.
and that's why we give out those address and information booklets,
Right.
is so we can say it.
You can get
Now,
all the address information you want, if you don't understand how important it is
that's what I'm saying.
Rita has called me.
Yep.
Said, hey, you want to go to the movies?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I would
Yeah.
love to go to the movies. You know, just a little, hi, how you doing? And can we get together and just...
I just hope Reva doesn't call me and ask me to go to the movies.
Well, it depends on what kind of movie you're going to see.
Right. So I'm going to close in prayer, shut this off, and I'm going to respond even deeper with that. Just, we're good about praying for people, which we should be. But, yeah. So, let's pray. Father, thank you for the work done by Lance and the guys going down and just the testimony that we saw tonight. It's good to be able to invest into your kingdom that way. Now, Lord, as we go from this place, just help us, Lord, to look out and to love our neighbor as we love ourselves, and to love you with all of our heart, soul, and mind. We got into your word, but not necessarily the way that we thought we would tonight, God. But just thank you for all that you're doing down there at that hurricane stricken area, not only there, but in Florida as well. And we just pray, God, you'd continue to just send forth laborers into the harvest field, into the mission field, God. And we pray for lives even now that are still at risk, God, that you would just, you have servants down there, God, just lead them, Holy Spirit, to the right place to protect those lives, we pray. And Lord, let the gospel be proclaimed for your glory. We thank you for all that you've done. Be with us as we go our separate ways. In Jesus' name, amen. I do apologize that it got interrupted. It's a two-part thing. So if you want to, you can go back and watch the beginning of it. It's about 15 minutes where it cut off, and then we started again. So thank you. God bless you. Make sure you hit a like button or whatever and leave a comment. God bless you. Have a great night.